thanks for stopping by. Pete Mesling here with another little publishing update for you. My story, The Chance of a Lifetime, is out now from Bram Stoker Award-winning publishers, Crystal Lake Publishing. It's a flash anthology, Kindle only, and these are priced to move, so I do hope you take a chance on this. There's a lot of great stuff in it, a lot of names you'll recognize, and I'm proud of this story. I always enjoy the challenge of writing flash. I think this one came out quite well. So I'm going to go ahead and read it for you here today. It's set in 19th century London, so I'll give you a moment here to get into your Victorian mood. You adjust your greatcoat, rearrange your vitrine, maybe fire your footman, whatever you need to do. I will, however, not be reading it in any kind of British accent. I will spare you that. I am, however, going to read it while wearing a newsboy hat of sorts. So without further delay, I give you The Chance of a Lifetime by Pete Mesling, read by the author. Captain E. Waverley stood swaying in the wings, waiting for his cue to re-enter the farcical drama playing out on the stage of the Adelphi Theatre. In part he swayed from the claret he'd swilled 3/4 of an hour earlier, and in part from the affliction he attempted to treat with drink. He had yet to announce the condition to anyone, but it was clear that he was suffering from aristocrat's disease. In short, he'd come down with the gout, which meant spending as little time as possible on the affected foot, and trying to look natural while doing so. Beyond the usual nervous excitement of opening night, there was a particular thrill in the air this evening. In addition to the audience's warmth toward the comical business of the actors, the material was nothing less than an adaptation of the Bardell versus Pickwick trial from Dickens's The Pickwick Papers. It was the kind of thing upon which great careers were built if one did well, and upon which promising careers blinked out of existence if one did poorly. Thus there had been more than one reason for the wine, even though Captain Waverley never needed an excuse to imbibe, whether before, during, or after a performance. His was the role of Mr. Pickwick, whose innocent words had by this time in the evening's performance been misconstrued by Mrs. Bardell as a promise of marriage. The ensuing trial for breach of that promise was underway, and so it was into the fray of jurists, witnesses, and onlookers that Waverley now stepped, with all the affable boldness and rotundity he could affect. The theatre-goers roared their approval. Deep down he suspected that they cheered at least as much for Dickens's creation as they did for his own modest celebrity, but their enthusiasm fueled his performance nonetheless. Gout, however, is a fickle complaint, and it turned against the good captain, who had never truly earned that or any other title, with a vengeance, before he could utter his first line of the scene. Down came the gout-ridden foot upon the boards, and up shot a vicious flame of agony. He collapsed on the spot and managed only a damn before the curtains closed so the crowd could be assuaged and the understudy located. "I beg you to understand," Captain Waverley pleaded with Mr. Bristle, the house manager, the next afternoon in the man's office. "This is not a permanent condition. I mean, it is, but it is not constant. The pain comes and goes. I can master it, I promise you." "Ha!" said Bristle. "And that, I suppose, has as much validity as Pickwick's promise to Mrs. Bardell. You're finished, Waverley. Gout's a bad business, and you have my sympathies, but you're not the first to lose a career to it, acting or otherwise." Captain Waverley stood and replaced the hat upon his head before laying both hands on the other man's desk. "Be forewarned, Mr. Bristle, that if you allow me to walk out that door under the terms you've laid out, the next time you see me might be as I gut you like a hog from navel to throat. If you think I'll beg you to stay because of an idle threat like that, you're as stupid as you are mad, sir. Now, if you'll kindly leave me to finish calculating last night's receipts." Bristle was correct about the threat being an empty one. Waverley may have wanted to do mischief against the manager, but Newgate Prison held no allure for him, and so he left the office without another word, assuring himself it had been worth a try. A mouldy dusk lay upon the city of London by the time he reached the clutch of houses in which his humble garret hid. So long did it take him to navigate the labyrinth of cowering buildings that it was practically dark by the time he let himself in and climbed the uneven staircase to his room. He had tied the rope to an exposed beam in the ceiling the night before, upon returning from the Adelphi. All that was left to do was move his reading chair into place beneath the noose and kick it out from under him Once he'd fitted the loop around his neck, that is. These things he did, and soon he swung like a sack of onions from the rafter, his last sight in this world a sliver of moon through the room's only window. Eventually his vision went dark, and the rope ceased its creaking where it rubbed against the wood. The room was as quiet and still as a churchyard for many minutes, until Captain Waverley dropped to the floor. Well, it couldn't have been Captain Waverley exactly, for he looked up and saw himself still hanging from the rafter. But he wasn't greatly diminished in this new form either. Examining his hands, he was gratified to see that they had real substance. His hat had fallen from his head when he came to the end of his rope, he noticed. So without a moment's hesitation, he stooped down to pick it up and placed it on his new, bare head. He was a bit worried about how long this new condition might persist, but he also saw that it presented certain possibilities. Perhaps, as he had read concerning situations like this, he merely needed to complete a piece of unfinished business before he would be allowed to move on. Further testing his relationship to the corporeal world, he walked across the room, without a twinge of discomfort, to where an ancient chest of drawers stood. He was able to coax the top drawer open with ease. Good, he thought, a moon-tinted smile spreading across his face. That meant he would also be able to retrieve the knife that lay hidden within, and do such bitter business as the day would quake to look on. And that's all I've got for now, folks. I hope you enjoyed our little trip back in time as much as I did. There is a link to the Shallow Waters Volume 3 containing my story in the video description below. So thanks, as always, for your interest in my work. I appreciate it. And until next time, this is Pete Mesling, signing off.